Hey, good evening, Pool Player Nation, and welcome to another edition of Billiards Tonight. I'm your host, Jason Bowman. Somewhere in the background behind us, running the show, is my man Steve Alejandro. He'll be kind of with us incognito stealth mode tonight. Tonight on the show, we got another icon from the pool world, the lovely lady who not only took the pool world by storm with her stunning good looks and her beautiful smile, but she also carved out a Hall of Fame career for her outstanding play on the pool table. Of course, I'm talking about my good friend, the one and only Striking Viking, Ewa Mataya Laurance. Ewa, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Jason?
Oh, I'm doing great, and it's so good. I know we've like traded emails and messages, and we talked on the phone, I think maybe once since all this happened. But it's good to see your face. You know, it's nice to actually see people right now. And so you look great. You look like you've been like on vacation. Like you look tan and look like you just got back from California or something. What's up?
I've been outside and painting and pressure washing and working in the yard. We've just been attacking it. So trying to keep my mind, sane throughout all this.
Yeah.
Missed Vegas. We were supposed to be in Vegas and having our tournaments coming up. This is springtime. So usually working really hard this time of year. So it's been kind of crazy, but enjoying the time off.
Yeah. How's the family? I mean, how's Mitch doing? How's Nikki, Toby, Levi's is your grandson, right? How's everybody else doing? Because you guys are kind of
Levi,
like a
Colton, Tyler. They're doing great. Everybody is great. We're just
good.
like everybody else on the planet, kind of nervous about what's going on and where's it going to go and how long are we going to be in this situation we're in right now, whether it's the economics or the getting sick, whatever it is. It's kind of a scary time.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about that and before the show, and of course, Ava is originally from Sweden, and so the interesting thing about Sweden, I know some people know about this already, but those that don't, they're kind of so they have COVID over there, but they are not really changing anything. They're just kind of saying, "Hey, we're going to try to build up." I think they call it the herd immunity, and so that's like the one country to watch because they're not really
Right.
changing. They're not going inside, but I mean, all kinds of people there still. So what is that like?
I mean, it's hard for me because my mom is still in Sweden. She's 81 years
Yeah.
old and she is totally social distancing, and she's a little scared of me because I told her I'd, smack her upside the head if she got sick and I couldn't get home. That's my
Yeah.
biggest fear, is that something happens. So, but she's really been good. She goes for long walks and my nieces go shopping for her and all that. So she's good. I feel good that she's doing the right thing. My
Yeah.
brother still works. My sister-in-law, they work full time. So it's the economy has taken a hit over there, but nothing like us. And they are, they're banking on the herd immunity.
Yeah. And so do you have any friends or family that have come into contact with the virus or, I mean, hopefully
Yes,
everybody's still
definitely.
healthy oh, you have. Okay.
Yeah, but nobody has gotten, thank God, really sick from it. And my hometown is farther north. We're about 2 hours drive, a 2 hour drive north of Stockholm. So it's not going to be as bad as, let's say, in Stockholm and Gothenburg and Malmö, the big cities.
Right.
They're seeing a lot more effect from this so far. So keeping my fingers crossed that what they're doing is working.
Yeah, crazy times we're living in for sure. And
Yeah.
I hope,
Yeah.
I hope for the best. I don't know what the answers are. We don't know what the answers are, but man, we just hope everybody ends up, long term being healthy and surviving this thing. So we'll continue. I mean, for sure. You said your mom's 81 years old. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, that's really that's very scary. I mean, to me, just to hear that. So, and to be so
Yeah.
far away from her and so we'll be thinking about you in that regard. I hope
Thank
again, I hope
you.
everybody gets through it. But I'm glad everybody's healthy and I'm glad you're healthy. I know you haven't been, so Ava's now a league operator. We're going to talk more about that later, but you've kind of been not so much working in that regard, right? So you're just kind of, what are you doing these days? Like, how are you staying busy?
Well, like I told you, I'm working outside a lot, doing a lot of things, but I'm also, whether it's exhibitions or And I haven't been playing in tournaments for a couple of years because my, some health issues and all that. But other than that, I'm just working at home. I am doing a lot of planning for when we get started again with the league. So that's going to be exciting. So
Yeah.
other than that, just, cooking a lot. And it's not working for my diet at all. At all.
So you sent me a picture, like I think the first couple of weeks, or maybe the first week this all started, we were talking, and you were talking about we're talking about self-quarantine. You sent me a picture of like where you've been quarantining with. I think we've got it prompted up. I think Steve's got it there. He can pull it up. So this is the Laurance property in South Carolina. So this is a pretty nice place to be quarantining. I know you've got the horses. This is in South Carolina, so I'm guessing the weather's been beautiful. So you've been doing all right. Now I see why you're looking so good, because you've been living a pretty well through quarantine.
Every day we get up and planting a bunch of flowers and this and that, painting the horse fence, all this stuff. And we constantly go, I feel so bad for people who forget about people who are sick, people who have, a hard time feeding their families, but just being able to have the land where we can go out and do stuff. Same thing with my daughter. She's got this beautiful horse farm. Yeah. And we're in the midst of all this mess, and it's tough on us too, but nothing compared to so many people. This is just crazy.
Yeah, well, it's a beautiful place, and I'm sure it takes a lot to keep it up, though. I'm guessing, you got horses, you got some horses, and so I know all that probably takes, some work to keep that maintained.
Yeah, I don't have any horses right now. Right now, my daughter, we're kind of babysitters. So whenever she's got like 20 horses out there.
Nikki's got the horses, okay.
Yeah. So that's how we ended up buying this place. We've been here 21 years now. And, I had a pool table. We added on a part of my home so I could have a pool table here. Jill does a lot of stuff with golf. So And at that time, 21 years ago, all I did was travel. I mean, all the time, doing exhibitions, playing in tournaments. So, for me, I could live anywhere. So we ended up here in South Carolina, and it was just supposed to be for about 4 years until my daughter went to college, and then she ended up staying here. And so we stayed here too. And it's been great. We love it, love it, love it here.
Have you, so you mentioned you got a pool table at home. You've been hitting pool balls. Are you in stroke? How's your pool game looking?
Playing a little bit. I'm going to join the WPBA in this little live thing, the little tournament that we're going to do. Kelly Fisher and a whole bunch of the top pros, Jennifer Beretta, we're all going to play in this tournament thing that I decided to sign up on. I don't know why, because I haven't been playing a lot, but it just seemed like kind of a fun thing to do. And it's from what I understand, it's charity related. So I said, what the heck, I'll jump in there.
That's awesome. When and where is that? So people can check that out.
It's going to be probably promoted shortly here on the WPBA, Women's Professional Billiard Association site. So that should be a fun thing. I think the first one, they're going to run several from what I understand. Okay. And the first one's going to be 16 players that have signed up to play. So we'll see. It'll be the first time. So
nice. Who knows? So that'll give us something to look forward to, some live sports. And we'll make sure that we try to share that through our Facebook page so everybody can tune in and check that out. At this point, man, we are craving live sports. So anything we can get our hands on, we'll take it. We'll take it for sure. So well, it's good to hear you're hitting balls, and that transitions perfectly into kind of our next segment of the show here, which is talking a little bit about just how you kind of got into professional pool. I mean, so you grew up, I guess till you're a teenager, right? You're in Sweden. And then what brings you are you playing pool in Sweden, and then pool brings you to the States, or you come to the States and then you play pool? Just what's going on in early life for Ewa? Of course, your last name wasn't Laurance, it was what? Ewa
Svensson.
Ewa Svensson.
Yeah, that's it. Nice. I just answered this question so many times through my career, but yeah, I was 14 years old, played soccer, and in the wintertime, a little bit of hockey, the guys and all that. Just love ball sports, love playing. And all of a sudden, my brother started going into this pool room, and my girlfriend and I decided, you know what, let's go in and kind of watch him play. I had a little bit of a crush on my brother's friend, Peter, and Nina had a crush on my brother. So we thought, yeah, let's go check out what the guys are doing. And I saw them play, and, you know, it turned out I ended up sitting next to a guy that actually was a really good player locally. Not world quality or anything, but I would say like a skill level 6 in the APA. And I'm telling you, he told me what the guy was thinking. Here's a guy that had won the European Championship or the Swedish Championship. And he said, this is what he's thinking. He's trying to come around here for this ball and play it over here. And it was all straight pool at the time.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
We kind of play. Yeah. And I became mesmerized, and I played a couple of times. I mean, went up to the pool a couple of times, and I told my parents, I said, I think this is what I want to do. And they thought I was crazy, but yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then I came over, I won the Swedish Championship, which led me to the European Championship in Bern, Switzerland, which was the first European Championship for women. And I won there in the straight pool division, and I was invited to play in the World Championship in New York.
Okay.
So I worked all summer, and had some help from the Swedish Federation, and I ended up in New York City, and I ended up staying. I was 17 years old. I've been here ever since.
Wow. So were like growing up, were you a competitive, I mean, were you an athlete? Did you do other sports, or like, did you find pool? Like,
yeah.
Okay. So you were an athlete already.
Yeah. I mean, athlete, you know, when you're 11, are you an athlete? I don't know. Yeah. I played sports, whatever it was.
What sports were you playing?
Ball, soccer, hockey, basketball. Played a lot of basketball and growing up and stuff. So yeah, I loved everything about sports.
Okay, so you come to the United States at 17 years old, and so you come to pursue a professional pool career, or you just come to the States because you want to come to the States?
I came to the States to play in that World Championship in New York.
And just stayed.
And then ended up staying here, and my parents kind of flipped out. But I had an open ticket to go home, so they said, "Okay, well, I'm sure you're going to be home and come to your senses here by Christmas." And went home to visit in Christmas. My father helped me get all the paperwork ready to go back to Sweden, and yeah, that was it.
So you set up shop in New York City then for like how long?
No, I ended up in Michigan, and then I was in Michigan for about, I guess, 9 years.
Okay.
And then a short stint in New York in between that. I was doing some modeling to try to pay for my pool habit. And then ended up going back to Michigan, and then ended up in Charlotte when I met Mitchell. So that was right around, early 90s where I met him. So that was, yeah.
I love hearing the stories from professional players about like how they decided to be a professional, and usually the conversation about telling mom and dad, because generally like the initial conversations don't usually go very well. And it's later that mom and dad are like, okay, you made the right decision. So hopefully mom and dad came around to your decision making.
They came around. I remember, first of all, I remember when I was in actually in high school, what we call college. It just works a little bit different in Sweden. But I remember they were not going to let me to go to the United States, or if maybe it was the European Championship. I couldn't get time off school for the European Championship. So I ended up quitting. I said, I can always go back to school, but I'm not going to not go when I had won this opportunity. And my parents thought, I was crazy, and we kind of had talks about it, but everything they said, okay, fine, I understand. You want to go to the European Championship. And then when I ended up over here, I remember either the first or second time that I came back, my father looked at me, he said, I still don't get it. You play pool and they give you money? I don't get it. He's a hardworking kind of man. He grew up on a farm and all that, and he just could not wrap his head around that whole thing.
Yeah, I'm sure not. So you mentioned doing some modeling, and so I'm really interested too, because so you've got this pool career, but at some point, like, and I don't know what at point, you'll fill us in on that, but mainstream kind of media finds the Striking Viking, the look, the nickname, and all these things, and I'm just curious, like at what point, or maybe you were already doing more of the modeling pool. Like what points do they merge? I guess is what I'm trying to get at. And I want to say this in a respectful way. Like you were kind of one of the early sex symbols of like the pool scene, right? Like Jeanette Lee became one, and you were like one of the first pretty nice looking females, and America noticed, right?
You know what? To me, pool was all about pool. So whether I was waitressing, I worked as a Playboy bunny, I mean, whatever it was, serving tables, it doesn't matter what it was, modeling, but it all had to do with pool.
Yeah.
Pool was my ultimate goal. I didn't want to be a model. I didn't want to be a, waitress. I wanted to play pool. So how do I fund that? Especially coming over here as young as I was, I had to figure out a way to actually pay for this pool habit of mine.
Right.
So, and back then we didn't really make a lot of money until all this exhibitions and all stuff happened later on. But and then 1992, I was ranked number one. I became ranked number one in 1990, and for the next 2 years. And in February 1992, a writer called up and said, "Hi, I'm from the New York Times Magazine." And I said, "Hi." And they said, "I would love to do a story on you." And I said, "Okay, that'd be great." So they decided to come to, There's
the New York Times cover.
There. Yeah. So I get a phone call. All of a sudden, this writer, Alessandra Stanley, shows up at my house and said, "Well, I'm going to spend about a week with you." And I'm going, "Well, I don't have time for all that." And that was when I was at the height. I was doing exhibitions every other week for Brunswick, and trying to, that between that and being a mom to Nikki and everything else, it was crazy. So I said, fine. So they stayed at a hotel. She stayed at a hotel. I flew out to LA because I was doing the Montel Williams show. So she came with me to that.
Wow.
She came with me to the pool room whenever I was practicing. She came with me to the national championship in Milwaukee, the WPBA Nationals. I ended up winning that, and she did a story. And then she wanted to do a backstory to it, so she flew to Reno, Nevada, interviewed some of the guys. They had a tournament out there. And that was in the middle of a whole thing with women. We're trying to do a tour with the men, and we had split up, and Don Mackey and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then she went home and wrote the article. And the next thing she did, she said, "Well, there's this guy. He's going to be Antonin Kucherval. He's going to be calling you about setting up, or his agent's going to be calling you about setting up pictures." And I said, "Okay, well, I don't have time for that," because I was just about to go to Sweden to visit my family. She said, "I can send you a promo picture." Brunswick had just come out with some promo pictures. And I said, "I can send you one of those." And she goes, "Yeah, no. This is like one of the highest paid, photographers in all of the United States. He's coming to take your picture." And I said, "I really don't have time." So we went back and forth for a while. And I remember telling Vicky Paskey, my best friend up in Michigan, who's also on the tour, I said to her, "I don't know what to do." She goes, "Well, go ahead." So he said, "Bring about 12 different outfits, and we'll figure out, I'll pick one." Anywhere from really attractive, whatever. So I had bought this one green dress when I was with my old friend, Kim Baldwin, out in Palm Springs. And she talked me into buying this dress. And I didn't wear all that. I was wearing jeans and tennis shoes, playing in pool tournaments. So I bought the dress, and I brought that with me that day. He picked that dress, and that was the picture, and it ended up on the cover. And my life changed like that. I mean,
I bet.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So, and when you say your life changed, so I thought it was interesting because you said like you were already going on Montel Williams before this happened. Is that right?
Yeah. No, I was doing quite a bit of stuff before this happened. Yeah.
Okay. So at what part of, and we'll come back to the New York Times and what happens after that, but just prior to, at what point in your pro pool career in the States does this like mainstream media start finding you, like Montel Williams and some of these other things? How does that happen?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
They just found you, huh?
First of all, it was a long time ago, Jason, so back off with all that. No, seriously. It was just, I mean, you're going to have pool fans everywhere. People love the game of pool. And
Yeah.
if there was an excuse, especially back then, a lot of the pool rooms opened up. The Color of Money came out in, 86, 87?
Yeah, I think 86, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of the pool rooms started opening. The pool kind of had this surge, and so they were hungry for something at the time anyway.
Okay.
So, did a lot of charity stuff, did a lot of, I remember the ex-president of Brunswick, John Stransky, and his wife, Pam, first time I met them, long before he became the president of Brunswick Billiards, I was doing a thing with Jerome Bettis, shooting a ball out of his mouth and all that. So I was doing a lot of exhibitions, a lot of appearances here in Canada and Europe. I was all over Europe doing shows at the time. But this whole thing, I mean, shortly after this came out, I was practicing at this pool room that you see in the picture called Pockets in Lansing, Michigan. And then Kevin, the guy working behind the counter, is yelling across the room. He goes, "Ava." And I said, "Yeah." "There's a guy on the phone that says he's David Letterman. He wants you to talk to you." So it was crazy. It was absolutely nuts.
So you did Letterman? You were on Letterman?
Yeah. Oh my God. That was a great segment.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it was
crazy.
2 segments and it was fantastic. Yeah, it was fun. I ran out on him. So that was great.
Yeah, I mean that's about as big as it gets. I mean, it's close to the Billiards Spotlight with Jason Bowman. It's Letterman and this show. So
He's not even close.
You're still on the rise. You're still on the rise. So that's great. And I mean it sounds like it's just kind of a perfect storm of your talent, your looks, timing, kind of what's going on in the world with you mentioned the Color of Money, and so this perfect storm just kind of catapults you into. Yeah. Again, I mean, I'm not trying to compare you to Jeanette, but like you were kind of the first like woman to really transcend outside of the professional realm, right? Just into kind of this other sphere, and it's rare that happens with professional players.
Yeah, and I mean, my goal was I had been on the board of the WPBA at the time, and to me, the only way this was going to last was to try to promote the sport itself.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not an idiot. You would kind of become, oh, it's all about this. And then it kind of goes away. So, to me, the vehicle was the game. So we were lucky because Vicky Paskey, Peg Ledman, Sherry Stout, Harold Simonson from Poolplayers magazine, a whole bunch of people got behind this. And as it turned out, this is the amazing part, is right around this time, we were putting together the WPBA Classic Tour.
Right.
And this vehicle, the fact that I got on, that Regis and the Regis show, Sports Illustrated a couple of times, People Magazine, all this stuff, I had a chance to talk about it. So when we went to the industry, the pool industry, and said, we got this idea, we want to do a WPBA Classic Tour. We had just split up from the men because of an unfortunate event. Mm-hmm. And they all backed us. And wherever we went from there, we got local media. So whether it was, we were in Chicago, we were in LA, we were in New York, we were in Miami. And I mean, it was line us up, I'll do ABC, you do CBS. How about, it was incredible.
That's awesome.
So the timing of the whole thing, Color of Money, the pool rooms opening, me getting the cover of this, getting all that national media. No local station would ever say no with a pool event coming into town. So, it was the perfect storm.
That's awesome. And I'm sure that's probably got to be such a special time in your life too, just knowing that pool is very much at your heart, and to see, because arguably the WPBA Classic Tour at its best, arguably the most successful professional pool tour that's ever been out there. I mean, when you talk about the duration of it, when you talk about the TV coverage and the ESPN part of it, that and some of the venues, I mean, I can remember going to the events at the Hard Rock in Florida. And I mean, these are massive entertainment complexes. And so it's a very cool time. And I'm sure you look at it really fondly. And I know you're still obviously very fond of it. You're still doing work with the WPBA. I know it's changed a little bit since those days, but it sounds like you're still pretty involved.
I just love the organization. We've been I think that's what I love about the APA too. We were a big family. You know, we all knew each other. We would go out and eat dinner together. We would share rooms, trying to figure out how to cover our expenses early on in our careers. Drove all over the place. We created this tour together, and then everybody we were just like all for one and one for all, for real. So we were it was just super supportive. I loved it. And, a lot of drama came later and all this kind of stuff, but those first years were priceless. It was great.
Yeah, definitely a special time. So you've talked about some of the players that you're pretty close with, at least Vicky Paskey, and you mentioned Sherry and Peg. I'm curious, like, if you were number one, that means you had to have like some serious rivals. So like, what players would you say were your, like, and I know I know you guys all tell me, hey, well, I always am playing myself. But at the end of the day, there's somebody else on the bracket that you're watching to see. And who were those players for you?
Well, my career has spanned for a while now. So every player, depending on when they came into the game, have had kind of the nemesis, depending on when you were on the rise. You know what I mean? I played for years before I was winning, and then I was winning for quite a while, and then I wasn't, and then so it depends on when you started, what year you started, everything else. But my first, the first carrot, the first nemesis, the first, idol that I had was Jean Belucas.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a big one.
Before that, it was a woman named Ewa Mataya Laurance, who was in Sweden, who was, the bee's knees back then. That was the one to beat. Then it was Jean Belucas. Then it was Laura John. Then it was Vivian. Then it was Jeanette. Then it was Allison. All of a sudden, Allison came on.
Yeah.
And then you go forward, and then it's Karen Kaur, and then it's, Ga-Yan Kim, and so on and so forth. So it all depends on which point in my career my nemesis was.
Yeah, that's some big names you just threw out there, some heavy hitters. And so, yeah, you think back over kind of the evolution of the tour, and you're right. I mean, those are the names. So definitely a special time, and I'm sure. So do you stay in touch with a lot of these ladies? I mean, you guys get together, talk. Like, what's the relationships like now?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's great. There's some players, that you keep in contact with more than others because you have similar lifestyles.
Yeah.
So, it's no different than in our APA family here in the Carolinas or anywhere else. People that you are, that you have similar likes, dislikes, age, family and no family, that type of thing. But Vicky Paskey, Sherry Stout, we kind of, we were the three musketeers that we really fought to get the tour going, the classic tour. Those are my closest friendships, like long-term. Yeah. Gerda Hofstetter is one of my best friends on the planet. I talk to Allison quite a bit. There's, a lot of them I just don't see because I don't travel like I used to, or they don't travel like they used to. So, but we're a pretty good family on the WPBA. There's no question.
Nice. Well, you obviously had an outstanding career, and capped that off by your induction into the Billiard Hall of Fame. I think we've got that photo. Hopefully Steve's still back there and can pull that photo for me. I think I had to pull your sketch. They give you all a sketch when you go in the Hall of Fame, but oh, he doesn't have that photo. So we'll just talk about the Hall of Fame. Yeah. Kind of when just tell us what year you were inducted, and kind of what that meant to you, like, solidifying your success, your personal success.
When I found out I was going to be inducted to the Hall of Fame, and I cannot believe this, but I don't know if I remember. I think it was 2004. It's a funny story behind it too. I got to tell you, I flipped out because all of a sudden, first of all, I kind of went, okay, that means I'm old. Holy crap. What? And my husband was, no, honey, this is the coolest thing ever. This is awesome. So I kind of went, oh, yeah, you're right. This is pretty cool. Then I was looking through everybody that is in the Hall of Fame, and all of a sudden, there's your
show. Steve and I started pulling some old pictures that we found on the internet of you at different times. We saw the New York Times picture. I think we got a couple others, and I just wanted to kind of go through them, let you talk a little bit about. So this one we're seeing here. Is this Jerry Lewis, like of the Jerry Lewis?
It is. It is.
Okay.
I remember what year that was, probably 90 or 91. I did the Jerry Lewis telethon. Yeah, that was great.
Wow. And so what was that like to meet him? Because that was, I mean, when I was a kid, I remember the Jerry Lewis telethon, because the night that was on, it meant like that was the last like non-school night, because you went back to school.
Yeah.
It was like a Sunday night or something. But what was that like to meet somebody of that kind of, because you talk about mainstream media. Jerry Lewis was, I mean, kind of everybody knew him from
that was
the
a big
telethon.
deal. He was great too, as you can see in the picture on the left. We were hanging out, and he was loving it, loved pool. Had seen me on something, I don't know what it was, but we hit it off and talking forever. And then did the show, and I shot a ball out of his mouth and let him do a trick shot, that whole thing. So we had a blast. He was great.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So Steve, we got another picture. Okay, now here we go. I saw this one. I said, got to talk to Abe about this picture. What's going on in this picture?
What's going on there was I was 19 years old, and again, to pay for my pool habit up in Lansing, Michigan, there was a Playboy club. Okay. And I worked as a Playboy bunny for about a year, until they told me right before this that I would have to choose between working and going to Sweden to see my family. So I had just quit, or either right before or right after this. Okay. And essentially just a glorified, waitress is what this is. So anyway, and then we had the very first women's tournament, the 7-ball championship. Charles Urzetti put it on in Atlantic City. And I was all about pool. I'm there in my jeans and my tan, and I'm practicing. They all went, we'd like you to, put your bunny costume on and do it. And I'm going, oh my God, this is not what this is supposed to be. So we did a piece for ESPN where, I did a trick shot, and they wanted Willie to kind of show me the shot and everything else. And I was desperately trying not to fall out of that thing.
So this is Willie Mosconi?
This is Willie Mosconi, yeah.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. You've heard of the Mosconi Cup. This is Willie Mosconi, Hall of Famer, and maybe this is
royalty right there. Yeah, I was really nervous. I was crazy nervous.
I can't believe I didn't even realize that part. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but that threw me for a loop there. Okay, Willie Mosconi. I was wondering who this guy that's pointing the balls, telling you what should happen. Yeah. Who's this guy?
Yeah, every right to.
Wow. Okay. That's very cool. That's very cool. So I imagine you look back on this photo pretty fondly then.
Very much so.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And look how tall you were. Or you still are tall. You're tall. Dude,
I am tall.
6 foot? I know every time we get together I feel short, so I know you're tall.
You're short. No.
Yeah, I am short. That's true.
Don't forget, Willie wasn't very, very tall, and I was wearing about 4-inch heels at the time. And
that's true.
Torture. Yeah. So
yeah, I was going to say, you look really tall.
The trick shot, that's all that matters.
Yeah. Steve, we got a couple other photos we want to, I think. Oh, here. So this one, I pulled this one because number one, where is this? Look at that crowd. Looks like a basketball game, but also, how many times have you done the shooting the ball out of the mouth shot? Because I know you've done I know every mainstream like media thing, they want to do this. And so not only do I want to know how many times, but I want to know like a time or two that didn't go like as it should have, which means like somebody got whacked.
First of all, probably about 4,200 times I've done this shot. I can't even imagine. I remember one time there was a big corporate event that I did, and it was a Swedish CEO. The CEO of the company was a Swedish guy, and he insisted on doing it, and it didn't go real well. But my favorite one is, kind of did a live thing with another player that should be unnamed. The other player insisted. Sorry, that's my puppy dog.
That's all right.
Insisted on shooting the shot and miscued and hit the live television cameraman. The weather guy in the mouth. Ooh. And he never missed a beat. He got up and looked in the camera and signed off, and blood was just trickling down his cheeks. The shot can't go wrong. But this was at Danny Vey was a Brunswick distributor, and they had set it up. This was halftime show at the playoff game with the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Oh, wow. So no pressure, no pressure. Not only
Oh
are you
my
shooting the
God.
ball out of his mouth, but you got at least, what is that
Yeah.
got to be, like 20-something thousand people in the stadium there?
I did 4 trick shots, and the worst part was so that they could carry it out quickly in halftime, it had no slate on it.
Oh.
And I was standing in the back, where all the players are coming out, LeBron, all these guys are, and I'm practicing these trick shots, and nothing went. I wasn't practicing the ball out of the mouth, but all the other shots, nothing, not one shot would go. The ball would roll off, just nothing. So I'm going, and every time I shot this shot, the ball would just fly off and hit the table. It was terrible. And they rolled the table out in the middle of center court, and all the shots went in. So it turned out okay at the end. But it's a little scary with that many people live. Yeah.
Yeah, and I bet every time you've done one of those types of things, especially the live ones, that's got to be so much pressure because they really want me to make this. They really want me to make this, and so that's great. And to the people that lay on the table, I don't know. I don't think I've ever let anybody shoot the ball out of my mouth. So I don't know. That seems like a very risky thing there. So that's interesting though. So I think we got another one that I'm really anxious to talk about, and it's this one. So this is Mitch Laurance, your husband. You and Mitch you talked about the WPBA Classic Tour. Of course, that was carried on ESPN, and you guys really became a staple of the broadcast as the commentators. And so I just want to, first of all, I want to know kind of how you and Mitch met, because it wasn't through this, I don't believe, but then also like how this commentary career started to blossom for both of you.
You know what? We met actually at a celebrity pro event in North Carolina, where he was acting a lot back then and living in LA. And he, passionate for golf, for many, many years. And he would go, some of the other actors would be invited, athletes, pro athletes, whatever, would be invited to play in the celebrity pro event the day before the actual golf tournament would start. So there would be this particular one was a celebrity, a senior golf event. So I was hired to kind of entertain that night and do some trick shots and all that kind of stuff. This is early 90s. And the guy that had him come over, organize the event, he says, "Hey, listen, Mitch, I think you should go play some pool." He knew Mitch was single. He says, I don't play pool. He goes, "No, seriously, I think you should go play some pool." And Mitchell said, "I told you, if I didn't have any arms, I couldn't, you could beat me. If you didn't have any arms, you could beat me." So finally he said, "Listen, you idiot, go play some pool." So he kind of came over, and that was it. I think, I was playing $25 a rack to be able to for charity. And I think Mitchell must have lost like, $1,200 or something. So it was great.
So was Mitch, was he a smooth talker, or were you pursuing? Did you see him? Did he see you? I mean, because you got to be a pretty smooth talker if you're going to reel in the Striking Viking.
Yeah, but see,
talker.
I used to watch him and not necessarily the news. So I
so you knew who he was.
Yeah, no, we hit it off. We had a really fun time, and we just kind of kept in touch for 2 years on the phone and everything else. And ended up, I didn't want to move to LA with my daughter. I didn't want to raise her out in a big city. And he had no interest of moving to Michigan at the time. So then we ended up in Charlotte. And a few years later, about 5 years later, I guess, 4 years later, we're at a tournament. I believe it was in Chicago. And we had these Gordon's $50,000 tournaments. Gordon's Gin and Vodka were the sponsors. And they asked, we had it was an ESPN event, big event. Sherry and Vicky were on the board at the time. And the commentator called and got sick. It was sick. So ESPN called and say, "You know what? I'm sorry, we don't really have anybody right now. We can maybe find you a local person or." And Sherry went, "Hey, Mitch." We said, "Yeah. Why don't you commentate?" And he goes, "Listen, I don't know anything about pool. Don't put me. What are you talking about? I can't commentate. I don't know anything about pool." She goes, "Oh, come on, you're an actor. Just act like a commentator." So that's kind of how it started. And ESPN liked it, and it worked out great. He learned so much about the players, really cared about the players. But because before then we got whatever commentator was available, and they knew nothing about the game. They knew nothing about, the people, the individuals, their styles, nothing. All they knew was what ultimately his job was to take you in and out of commercials and lead questions and that type of thing. And then as players, we do the color. We talk about what the players are going to do and all that. So yeah, it was an amazing thing. For like 15 to almost 20 years he was doing it.
Yeah, and I mean, you were pretty much at his side for most events, at least unless you were playing, right? So,
Right.
which was kind of an interesting thing too, because like, how thrilled were you about doing it if you weren't playing? I know you'd rather be on the table than talking about maybe somebody that knocked you out of the tournament. How was that to kind of play into things?
Hey, no, that's hard though. I mean, it's especially if you're like choked on the 9 ball the night before to lose, or it's one of those kind of things. So that face right there is okay. Here we go, because you're remembering that 4 ball you snookered yourself on the night before. So
I
yeah,
bet.
it was fun. It was great for us to be able to do it together. It was great.
Yeah, and you guys were so natural. I can remember watching those events and just thinking, you would have never thought that Mitch just got thrown into the fire. You would have thought that it was kind of what his, because I knew he had the acting career and assumed that he just at some point had gotten into commentary. So that's some fun days, the WPBA Classic Tour glory days for sure.
Yeah, it was great.
For sure. And I think we got any more photos, Steve, in there? We got any other ones? Oh yeah. So this one, I found this one. I had totally forgotten about this. So back in maybe about 2004-ish, am I right in that?
Yeah, 4, 5, 6, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Was it Game Show Network?
Game Show Network, and Sony was behind it. It was a show called Ball Breakers, and it only lasted 1 season. It was kind of a show. I think we did about 15 episodes, and we did 3 or 4 celebrity episodes that were really a lot of fun. Sal Masekela, he was doing the what do you call the winter games that they used to have? The extreme. I can't remember what the show was.
X Games, like the X Games.
Thank you. And then Adrian, she was the winner of the first, model something rather reality show. And it was fun. It was really a lot of fun. We have a lot of the APA players were actually in this show from all over, but mostly California. One of the ex-league operators, Vicky, actually played in this.
Vicky Wade, yeah.
Yeah, Vicky Wade did. And so that was a lot of fun. That was an amazing experience just to go through. I loved it.
Yeah, because that was big time production. I can kind of remember that because they were talking to us about promoting the show, and they sent like a media kit and all those things. And
yeah, it was big time.
So was that done in LA? Like, how long were you in? Did you have to film this?
I think I was in LA for about 2 months, something like that. Yeah, a month and a half, 2 months.
It's just amazing some of the different and the variety of opportunities. I mean, we've talked about Jerry Lewis Telethon, and here you're doing a live trick shot thing at the Cavs playoff game, and now you've got this game show, and there's the ESPN commentary, all these amazing, just really amazing experiences. And I think do we got one more photo, Steve? Okay. And so now you have, you and I mean, come on, has there been any highlight in your career bigger than our work together during the live streams in Vegas?
It all culminated into this. This was what I was going for right here.
So this was one of the early. So I don't know if you remember this, Ava, but this is 2016. APA had just started live streaming our finals, and I think this was the Pool Player Championships that year.
Was this the first one?
Yeah, so this is like the first when we first got that going, and of course that's we do that on the regular now. Ava mentioned at the outset we should have been in Vegas just over the weekend doing this, and obviously that didn't happen. But that's really come a long way over the last four years or so that we've been doing. I mean, they just keep putting money into the production, and I remember last August they had the lighting and the room all rigged up, and it's interesting how things have changed from. And you saw this with the WPBA, I think, too, from the mainstream cable TV coverage to kind of the streaming platforms where everything is gone. And I'm curious what you kind of think of the streaming overall.
Obviously, I think streaming is great. I miss us having a spot on ESPN, Billiards on ESPN, the way we had it.
Yeah.
As far as the pro events, because it really brought people where they're just kind of clicking through and they're hitting ESPN or ESPN2 like they always do, and there's pool, and they may not have never been introduced to it, whether it's the pro event or just falling in love with the game itself. But the streaming, it's amazing how spoiled we are now. You just click on anything and you go on YouTube and you put in billiards, and there's 40 million different things that you can watch between YouTube and the streaming on Facebook and on all these other platforms. So it's great. As far as doing the APA, at first people were saying to me, I don't know, you're going to stream APA tournaments?
Yeah, amateur events, like who's going to watch?
And I go, you don't get it. I said, this is, APA is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I don't care, I've said this a million times. I had a few of my pro friends said, okay, so you're a league operator. You're going to have to sit through watching these guys that can't make two balls in a row. And I said, you have no idea what you're talking about. I said, you go down when there's any kind of a playoff, any kind of a championship, or even on a league night. These guys, their passion for this game is what you used to have when you started 20 years ago, when you first fell in love with this game, and you are playing not just to feed your family, but you're playing because you love it. You're playing because it's the coolest game ever. And then there's the support. And said, I've always said the pressure that we feel as pros is bad. But that's kind of, I compare it to, if you have money, and during these times with this virus, if you lose a lot of money, you might lose $20 million, but if you still have 16 million, I can't feel that sorry for you.
Yeah, right.
But if you are losing, your last money that you had saved in the bank.
Yeah, if you can't eat. Yeah.
So to me, it's the same thing where, yes, we used to play and try to feed ourselves and all that, but when you're playing an APA and you have a regular job and you're a regular person, and all of a sudden you are the one to either take all your friends, your team, to Vegas or not. You're either going to choke or you're going to be the hero. I can't tell you the pressure on these guys. It blows my mind. I get so nervous when we run tournaments, I can't even tell you.
Oh, I know. And I know how nervous, like just when we do the stuff in Vegas now, one, I love it because, for some of these players, like you said, they're amateurs. This is the highlight of their pool career. They're not going to be on the tour on ESPN. This is their ESPN. And to see, and it's sometimes like we get so nervous because we can feel the pressure in the room. This past year you had several hundred people watching, and you got 1,000 people watching online, and we're watching a couple of twos play for $25,000. And I know you and I were just back there like, ooh.
Oh my God. I know.
It's been really successful, and I really did miss it this past event, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do it, hopefully in August, as soon as August, but we'll see. I'm curious though, because you mentioned APA and league operator life, so you kind of have transitioned from kind of the playing. I know you still play, but you've really transitioned more into this other career, which is as an APA league operator. And I'm curious, like, how that came about. How did you go from one to the other, and what's life like doing that?
Well, the first thing that happened was a friend of mine, Bruce Bartlett, up in Connecticut, longtime league operator, has a big area up there. He said we became friends. I did about 17 exhibitions for him in 2 weeks. At one point, he had me do a whole tour doing shows for all the players up there. And he said, you know what, you should do this. And I said, I don't have time. I said, I'm on the road all the time. I'm doing stuff for Brunswick. I'm doing corporate shows. I got tournaments. I have my daughter, and my husband and I do a lot of pro celebrity golf tournaments. I said, he said, well, what about your kids? What about Nikki and her boyfriend, husband? And I said, well, let's look into it. So he knew, we kind of looked at it, and it didn't really make sense because the area where we live was kind of taken, or had it league operator. And probably about a year later, or 6 months later, probably, I get a phone call from I don't know if it was from Bruce or yeah, I think it was from Bruce, saying, hold everything, Myrtle Beach is for sale. And I said, okay.
The APA League in Myrtle Beach, yeah.
The APA League.
Yeah.
And he says, you want to do it? And I'm going, do I want to do it? I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't know, what does it entail? What is this? So we sat down and talked. Nikki said, I'm with you, Mom. And Toby was still working at the time, so he wasn't part of this whole thing.
Mitchell, Toby is Nikki's, your daughter's husband, yeah.
Yes. He's elected, yeah. So it's Nikki, Toby, and Mitch and I that kind of run it. And so it was one thing, and it kind of just came out of nowhere. And I said, okay, we'll do it. And the first year, I remember Mitchell calling Bruce up one day and saying, Bruce, I'm going to burn down your house. Because I was a wreck. I didn't know. I mean, I knew pool, but I didn't know all these qualification rules and everything that makes sense to me now, why we have these rules. At the time, I'm going, well, why? Well, why do you have to have 10 matches? You have to have an established handicap. Okay, well, all this kind of stuff was, and understanding how everything worked, the whole thing was crazy. I was stressing out, and I am a perfectionist. So if I didn't cross a T or dot an I was freaking out. And what if I didn't do the right thing by this doubles team being able to go to Vegas? It was terrible. Yeah. And then after the first year, luckily, Mark Lancaster had this area for a short time in the interim, and had kind of helped me set up some stuff and said, yeah, you should. And for those of you who know Mark, he's a little pushy. So I just went, okay. And it turned out to be one of the best things we've ever done. I've met so many great people, so many stories. I love this whole thing. I really do. And so does Nikki and Toby. It's been great. It's been really great. And Mitchell too. Mitchell usually has to stay home when we have tournaments to watch my grandson because he's 8. But other than that, yeah, it's a full-fledged family business over here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fascinating as you look back over your career from all the way from Sweden, where you started playing pool, to your pro days, and then it, migrating into yet another part of pool, yet at a different part. You know what I mean? You've really been able to keep pool at the forefront of your entire life, and that's certainly not an easy thing to do. I don't know that there's many that have done that, and so very cool. How long have you been a league operator about now?
11 years.
Okay, I knew it's been it's over a decade. Okay, so you're locked in now. You're sold, right?
Yeah, I'm like a veteran now. It's kind of strange. I'm an old time, league operator. No, I'm fine with that. It's like I said, I can still be around the game. I have traveled my entire life, so I've never really had time to make a lot of friends where I live because I've always been on the road.
Yeah.
And my friends are spread. My best friends are in Sweden, in Palm Springs, in LA, in Michigan, in Charleston. I mean, they're all over the place. Yeah. So this has kind of afforded me. It's weird. It's like you're not going somewhere all the time. It's a very different thing, but it's really been great. I've met some amazing people.
Yeah, it's become like a whole new social circle for you, I guess, which is, and that's interesting because, so many of the people that play APA do it for the social aspect. And here you're talking about how it's created a new social circle for you. Who would have thought the Striking Viking would have found a social circle through APA? That's a cool story.
Yeah.
And the eagle, so I'm going to brag on you. The eagle above Eva's shoulder there is only given to league operators that win League Operator of the Year, right?
Also Carolina APA right there.
And so is that 2 eagles you got? You won 2 League Operator of the Years, is that right?
Yeah.
And that is no easy feat, folks. That is certainly no easy feat. Those are given to only the very best league operators, and so that's great. And again, here's Ewa Laurance, Hall of Fame career on the table. Now she's winning League Operator of the Year awards as an operator. And so, I'm not betting against you, Ewa. I'll never bet against you. No way. So, Steve, Are you still back there, Steve? I we'll probably skip the. We're right at the hour mark, and I want to make sure we get some questions from the audience in the chat if there's any in there. So we'll probably skip the quarantine trivia tonight, unless Ava really wants to do it. Did you want to do the quarantine trivia?
The quarantine trivia.
Oh, let's do quarantine trivia. We got to do it, Steve. It's tradition on the Billiards Spotlight now, Ava. We asked some very simple questions geared towards life during the pandemic. And, you just give us your response. There's no right or wrong answers. But we did this with Jeanette and Jeremy Jones and Skylar Woodward. And so I can't not do it. I was going to not do it, but we got to do it. So let's roll them
All
out,
right,
Steve.
let's go ahead and do it.
Quarantine trivia. Question number 1.
Question number 1. Ava, if you could only eat one thing during quarantine, what would it be? One thing.
Salt licorice.
Wow, and she didn't even hesitate. She knew right away. Salt licorice? What is salt licorice?
Oh, you haven't lived. Jason,
salt
snap
licorice.
to it.
I mean, I eat licorice like the red licorice. That's not salt licorice, right?
No. Real black licorice covered in salt.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Yeah, she knew right away. I'm not questioning her.
Try it.
I'm gonna have to try some salt licorice. I've never even heard of it. I'm gonna have to try it. If that's the only thing if you can only eat one thing and you're willing to eat that for as long as it takes, I gotta try it. I'm gonna go literally. I'm gonna get off the call. I'm gonna run to the grocery store and see. I'm gonna put my mask on. I'm gonna see if I can get some salt licorice tonight in the house. So, question number 2, Steve.
Question number 2. If you could only watch one TV show, what would it be and why? One TV show.
SVU.
Okay, CSI?
On SVU, yeah. Dun-dun.
That's the one with Ice-T, right?
That's what I'm talking about right there. Yeah, no, it's that's my show.
And you get a lot of episodes with that show, so that's a good pick because there's like probably 1,000 episodes of that show. So you're never gonna have to watch the same one. Well, maybe, but hopefully not. Right? All right. So that's a good answer. I like that answer. SVU for Ewa Mataya Laurance. Question number 3, Steve.
Question number 3. When you go to the grocery store during quarantine, or if someone goes on your behalf, what is the first thing you have them grab? The must-have, gotta get it.
Before it's gone.
When I go to the grocery store?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's the one thing,
not salt licorice.
Toilet paper's been hard to find. Meat's been hard to find. What's the first thing you got to have?
First thing, I don't go to the grocery store. I tell Mitchell what to get at the grocery store. So that's number 1.
So where do you send Mitch first? What's the first aisle? You say, Mitch, do not come home from the grocery store without this thing.
I think that would have to be coffee.
Coffee. I got it. That was my answer. It's got to be a certain kind of coffee.
Yavalia coffee.
Boom. I'm with you on that answer. All right, final question.
This is the good one.
Final quarantine trivia question.
If you had to quarantine with one other professional pool player, you're stuck with him, who would it be and why?
Huh?
It's the only question she hesitates on.
Well, I mean, I would have to think. It couldn't be Efren. I think that's obvious, but he doesn't talk much. Would we have a pool table or no?
Sure.
Yes, you have a pool table at your house, so we'll say
we have a pool table, Efren.
Okay.
Because I couldn't do Earl because he would talk me to death. But now, if there was a pool table there, it would have to be Efren.
That's
okay.
Fair.
So that's an interesting answer. Not necessarily because obviously Efren is probably the greatest player to ever pick up a cue, but the fact that a lot of professional players, some of which you said are like best friends, but you pick Efren, so that just tells me that you feel like there's still things for you to learn in your game. Is that? Am I reading that right?
Oh wait, no, Gerda. It would definitely have to be Gerda. No, I'm sorry, I forgot the fact that it could be friends, like the friend aspect. I thought you were talking about the pool playing at. All right.
I thought it was fine though.
No matter what I say now. So
okay, all right. So it's Gerda. You're going Gerda over Efren. Hey, that's an endorsement there. When you get picked over Efren Reyes in anything, that's pretty impressive. So fair enough. Steve, we get any questions from the chatters before we let the Striking Viking get on with her life there back at the we don't call it a farm, we don't call it a ranch, right? It's,
I call it my house.
Call your house. It's a house.
Yeah, no, there hasn't been a whole lot of questions.
No
just
questions.
A whole lot of support, a lot of you're awesomes, and there was some Mark Lancaster shenanigans earlier, and
don't even go there. Don't even go there.
Hey, so if there aren't any questions from the chatters, I'll ask one more, Ava. And so we talked about this earlier today with another league operator that I know you're close with, Brad Jones. Some of the APA leagues now, two in fact, have gotten going this week. One in Mid-America APA, which is in the kind of the Boot Hill area of Missouri, and then Memphis APA. So I'm just curious, kind of, that's got to be hopeful for you, because I know you got Coastal Carolina APA. You're wanting to get that back up and running. And I just know overall, for pool players, anything that gives us hope right now. So what did you think of the fact that the pool is getting ready to starting slowly to come back online?
You know what? I can't wait, and I know the majority of the responses that I've had. I actually did a poll on our group page, is to get back to playing again. Obviously, we all wanted to get back to normal, and but I'm also hesitant because I don't want anybody to feel pressured by me, by their captains, by the other players on their team that you got to come, you're the three that we need, or. So it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to start out because it's not going to be a magic bullet. We're going to have to get out and do and live before there's going to be a cure. Yeah. So I just want to see kind of where it's going. Our area hasn't been hit real hard, but I also know a lot of people from up north, New York, New Jersey, Ohio, Chicago, that are coming to Myrtle Beach to vacation. And we've kind of opened up the city. Is it going to start picking up? So I feel some responsibility. Obviously, it's up to everybody to choose what they want to do, but it's also to me it's a tough decision. It's not like as soon as they open up. And at the same time, I want to support our host locations. They've been struggling and really going through a hard time. So you feel like, how do you make the correct decision? You know what I mean? I feel that it's tough. I mean, we really are ready to go. We want to go back to playing. We want to, be in Vegas first in August. We have players qualified for August. We have players qualified for December, or fighting to get qualified for December. So, yeah, all the way around, including our host locations, we just want to play. But I don't know. I'm glad, kind of like Sweden being the country that is trying this herd immunity. I'm kind of glad Brad is out there, starting out to see kind of how it goes. And so far, he said it went great. And then you have areas like, Florian, who has the league in Las Vegas. Yeah. And then you have Pascal up in Canada, where it looks like it's going to be longer before things really get going. And they're hurting both as league operators and all their locations. And I don't know. I just want to go back to having our league back and our family and all the crazy people that I hang with. So
yeah, I think I could speak for all of us in saying I hope we get there sooner than later. Do you have any? So I haven't really checked. Like South Carolina, are you guys still on stay at home? Or are they like lifting that? Have they lifted that? What are the rules in South Carolina?
I have one of our locations have opened up for outside seating, and I think that's going to happen a little bit more. That's here in South Carolina. North Carolina is a little bit more conservative as far as opening up, but it's starting to kind of bubble a little bit, and it's starting to look like we maybe starting up again. A lot of our locations, I'm happy to say, are doing a lot of renovation, cleaning like crazy, painting, changing from hand towels to automatic where you don't have to touch anything, that kind of stuff. So a lot of improvements are being made, and we're all betting on the win, on getting back to business again.
Yeah. Hopefully sooner than later. Steve, did we have anything that came in real quick there? I thought I saw one from Mitch Lawrence. Maybe not.
I could ask that question. Mitch would like to know what drink you would like made for you before bedtime.
well,
then
there's
Just
Toby
get the
asks,
I'm a big coffee and Grand Marnier drinker, and that's my kind of choice of sitting down, having a little snifter of grandma, so yeah, get that going, will you, honey? Just
and then Toby wants to know who your favorite son-in-law is.
well, you guys know Toby, so you knew what the answer was going to be there.
I did. Other than that, somebody asked you to plug the charity tournament again that you were talking about earlier, and I think that's probably it for questions.
Yeah, the WPBA, the Women's Professional Billiard Association, is having a streaming tournament. It's kind of playing the Ghost, and there's 16 players, and I'm not sure when it's coming up. So go to the WPBA, Women's Professional Billiard Association Facebook page, and they're going to share it there.
Yeah, and we'll keep our eye out too, and once we see it, we'll make sure we share that so you guys can all tune in. We could all use some live sports, man, sooner than later, please. So, all right, Ava. Well, we appreciate you joining us, folks. The one and only Striking Viking here tonight for you, and we really do appreciate you taking the time. And it's always good to see your pretty face and catch up. I missed, like I said, we missed hanging with you in Vegas, and hopefully August. Are you coming August? Are you going to be out there?
If I have to drive out there, I'm planning on being there. Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope
a bunch of teams going out there and players. So yeah, I want to be out there and I want to see you guys. So.
All right. Well, hopefully we'll be able to catch up in August. In the meantime, you and the family take care of yourself, and for the folks at home, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week here on the Billiards Spotlight. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.